You're going to showboat, knock down the shot.
For what his value is, it doesn't equate to winning basketball.
When you're talking about the greatest of greats, that's what you have to do. You have to nitpick.
We'll see you in the playoffs. We'll see you in the playoffs.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the TM Up podcast. We're back. We took a couple of weeks off, but we are back in business, just trying to figure out some other things going on in our lives. Obviously, we talked a little bit about Jarrett moving down the southern part of the country now, but we have a lot of NBA basketball to talk about here on this one. A lot of interesting things. We're already about a fourth of the way into the season, about 20 games played, somewhere around there for most of these teams. So I'm Jace Eustace. I don't know if I said that. I'm a little bit rusty. Joined, as always, by Jared Huff here, my co-host, my partner. Jared, how you feeling, my man?
I'm feeling pretty good. Being down south is nice. Although in terms of the NBA standings, being down south ain't too great, just like my new hometown team, the Houston Rockets, know. And my true to my heart hometown team, like the Chicago Bulls, are kind of in that southern region as well, which I'm not liking too much.
Absolutely. Speaking of that southern region, that just leads us right into our first topic here on the Team Up podcast. After last season, where both of our teams, the Miami Heat and the Chicago Bulls, really played pretty well in the regular season, and at certain points even held the title of the 1 seed in the East, we now sit here with two mediocre teams at the moment, with the Heat with the 10th seed with a 12-14 record, Bulls in that 12th seed with a 10-14 record. So Jarrett, knowing our history, our expectations of our teams, obviously we follow them close as pretty much anybody. Who do you think should be more worried as we sit here today, Miami, Chicago?
See, that's a really interesting question, because you can look at it from two ways.
Mm-hmm.
The first way you can look at with the Bulls is they're not entirely healthy, and one of the big reasons on why the team struggled late last season is still the reason that I think they're struggling this season, which is Lonzo Ball not being part of the rotation at the moment. As we all know, Lonzo Ball has been dealing with knee issues for almost a year now, and he hasn't been in the lineup since early January, which is about the time when the Bulls took their turn from being like the top seed in the East to plummeting as far as I believe they got down to 6, almost falling into the play-in. They started the season without him this year, and it kind of looks like a similar situation to last year, where the Bulls are just not closing games out, or they're down early, and by the time they get their heads together, it's too late. The Miami Heat, though, I mean, obviously they're 2 games ahead of the Bulls, well, a game ahead of the Bulls, but they have 2 more wins than the Bulls. So they're kind of right there to where they can jump really quickly, because there's not a huge gap from like 4th to 10th.
Yeah.
And I think the Heat can just string a couple of games together and they'll be fine. But it's not a great look. The Bulls, we don't know when Lonzo's coming back, and if he does, we don't know how that's going to play out. But they're only 10 games out of first, and they're only 3 games out of 4th. If they can string together a couple of games, that'd be great too. I mean, they had the second toughest schedule in November. December looks to be a lot easier. We'll have to wait and see. But with both of these teams, and I've seen it on social media, I am not at the point where I'm even considering blowing it up. I mean, the Heat, like, they were just in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. It is December, and December is barely a weekend. We're just over a weekend.
One shot away from the NBA Finals, too.
Exactly.
I mean, they were right there.
Exactly.
Taking down Boston, and everybody thinks Boston's juggernaut, which they've been great this season. Don't get me wrong. Boston's been fantastic, but one shot away from taking that team down last season.
And Miami's team, it's a pretty good core. I mean, Kyle Lowry is probably the biggest question mark when it comes to this roster. His age, he's definitely not what he once was. But that's a reasonably, in the grand scheme of things, that's something that you can easily fix. Whereas finding another star like Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, and the rest of that really deep bench that we just raved about all last season, there's no reason to give up on that early. In the Chicago Bulls case, this team's only been together literally about a year, as Zach and Kobe White were the only returning players from any of the previous seasons last year. So essentially, this team's been together less than 2 seasons. We're already going to blow that up. It's kind of ridiculous to me. Sure, some players on both teams have had issues, but I want to take the wait and see approach. I just hate the culture of today, where if they're not winning right now, we have to be done. I mean, Go back and look at the 80s and 90s roster. Some of those guys, including role players, were on their teams for 10 plus years, and it was
Yeah.
common. Like I'm ready. I'm ready to fight this out. I want to stick with the score.
Yeah, I agree with you that it's I wouldn't be ready to just blow up the Chicago Bulls, although it is interesting whenever you're in a situation where you're hearing that the Lakers are looking at possibly picking off any sort of shrapnel that might happen. Whenever you kind of hear those reports, I know obviously the Lakers think everything, everything is going to come to fruition and nothing ever does. It's kind of like how, Boston's going to trade for every single star and never does. Nick's going to sign every free agent and they never do. But whenever you hear those reports that the Lakers are monitoring your situation just in case maybe they can find some sort of deal for DeMar DeRozan, obviously we knew DeMar thought he was going to end up as a Laker, and then they shifted how they were going to go, and he didn't end up going there, obviously. But I didn't necessarily expect the Bulls to get a lot better this season, personally. Like, I thought with their injuries, Lonzo Ball has been one of the biggest question marks as far as his injury the last two seasons, as Kawhi Leonard has been, and we've talked about obviously how Kawhi's been, and the other teams around them have been improving as well. That being said, though, I am further down on my Miami Heat than even I expected you would be, because I look at these past few seasons at the beginning of the season when the Heat have been able to kind of weather the storm of the early season injuries where we've seen, Jimmy, Hero, Bam go down, on and off for multiple games at a time. This guy's missing a week here. He's missing 2 weeks there, just kind of weathering that because of their youth and their incredible depth. I don't think that's really been the case so far this season. When their core guys have been out, they've had to resort and really rely on a lot of their star that's in the lineup having to carry them to a victory. And that's not what Miami Heat basketball is. They are more of a, we're going to score, he's going to score 20, he's going to score 20, he's going to score 18, he's going to score 15, and they're just going to beat you to death with the entirety of their roster. You're not going to have a guy that's going off for 45 points. That's not how they're built to win. So instead of focusing on team basketball, they're really having to rely on whatever the star that we have. If it's Hero's going to need to go nuts. He's going to need to get in the 35, 38, 40 points. Bam, if it's him, he's got to score 30 points. He's got to get 15 to 20 rebounds. He has got to carry us. Jimmy Butler when he's been in there. So obviously they can spread it around a little bit when all of those guys are there. But when it comes to an 82-game season, you have guys, they're going to get banged up. They're going to get dinged. You have to rely on your team basketball that when guys aren't there, you can still win. And that's what's made Miami such a consistent team over the last few years, is they've been able to do that. So Bam, there has been some strong points. Bam, he's been strong as of late. But honestly, I see a lot of Anthony Davis in him to a smaller degree, like not the talent level of Anthony Davis, but just kind of when he plays hard and he looks like he is really into the offense, he's dominant. He can have these stretches where he is unstoppable, both on the boards and scoring from the offensive side, much like Anthony Davis. But he can also have stretches where it seems like he phases into the background a little bit when he's out there, where it just looks, is Bam even on the court? Because it just kind of looks like he can, sometimes the offense doesn't scheme through him. It just kind of schemes around him a little bit. So you always know what you're going to get with Jimmy. You pretty much always know what you're going to get with Hero, a little bit more inconsistent just because of his youth. But this team reminds me so much of last year's Cavs roster because they need a Donovan Mitchell. I said this at the end of last season. They need a killer. They need a bona fide scorer that on nights when things aren't going according to plan, they can play freely and you can kind of back yourself into a win on a Tuesday night against Detroit. Like you have that ability to do that. And I think it might be time to hit that all in button, trade some of that youth depth for an assassin. Like I don't know what the answer is. Bradley Beal used to be a much more appealing piece, and he's looking like right now. I used to be really high on that. It's not going to happen, but you need a guy like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. You need a killer, a guy who's a bucket getter. Something has to change. I love this team. I love how they play most of the time, but we could be looking at a wasted season with Jimmy Butler. And we got to be honest, he's 33 years old. He's starting to get a little bit older. He's still a great player in this league. But I'm a little worried about Miami is where they sit right now because they don't have that guy, that scorer. And that's what I think the Cavs, I love the move with Donovan Mitchell. That's exactly what they needed, and that's exactly what they got. And we've seen how it's paid dividends so far this season.
I don't mean to make you sweat a little bit, but
Yeah.
if you do remember, Jimmy Butler did say at one point that he didn't want to play past 35.
Yeah.
So you have to see if he was
That's
just
all I'm
joking
saying.
or keeping true to that. You never know.
Exactly. I know it's what's been their strength has been that depth, but at some point you got to hit that button and just say we're going for it. And I don't know, I don't see the piece out there right now. It used to be Bradley Beal for me. I was like, we need to get a Bradley Beal. Now I'm not so, especially with the contract that he's on. I don't even know if that works. I got to go into ESPN, trade calculator and see if the money even matches up. So I don't know about that, but
Yeah,
there's,
good luck with that deal.
yeah, I don't know what the answer is. They need someone that their job is to score the basketball and that's it. And I just don't see that on this roster right now. So I'm a little worried about Miami, man. I'm a little worried. I'll tell you that much. I was surprised to see you weren't as quite worried about them. I know you're obviously
Yeah,
not ready to hit
I'm
the
not
blow
too
up button
worried
on Chicago.
because my team's not together yet.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do any, and I know that our front office, they're not gonna make any moves because they have stated they
Yeah.
want to see what this roster looks like when it's healthy. I
Yeah.
think as most Bulls fans do. Well, not most. Some of us have gone off the deep end, which is expected with this fan base sometimes, I swear.
Oh
Yeah, but
man.
I'm gonna chalk it up to Justin Fields just playing so well that my Chicago fears we're
There you
leveled.
go. There you go.
I average all my feelings out. Just
I feel that too, man. Moving from a couple mediocre teams in the Eastern Conference right now, let's go to a mediocre team in the Western Conference, and that's the Dallas Mavericks. Another team that was in that Western Conference Finals just last year, find themselves with a 13-11 record in the 11th seed, despite with their best player playing at MVP, putting up MVP level numbers. Jared, from looking at the Mavs start to this season, is there a problem brewing, or is this just one of those teams that's off to a little bit of a slower start?
well, there's only a problem brewing if Luka's unhappy, and that's a situation that is very possible. The best way I've seen it described or compared to, which I saw this on Twitter, so I apologize that I can't give the direct credit to whoever I saw this take. But the best way you could compare this is the pre-Miami Heat Cavaliers for like
100%.
during LeBron James's tenure. But probably to a lesser extent, I would say. Obviously, they haven't made the finals within the same amount of time that Luka's been there, and let's face it, LeBron, in my opinion, had a better supporting cast. Like you can kind of scoff at some of those teams, yeah, but he had some real guys on those teams. Like Ilgauskas, he was an all-star. And there are other role players like Mo Williams.
Mo.
I mean, even I would take a 36-year-old Shaq over
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah,
anything
you're
Luca's really
talking
had
way
this
late.
far.
Yeah, I got you.
And I can't even think of the one shooting guard. I know his name so well, and I can picture his face that played for the Washington Wizards, and the Cavs on the 2007 Cavs, and he was later traded to the Bulls for Ben Wallace. See, that's how much I know about this guy. I just can't think of his name off the top of my head right now. Man, I swear I've been having that issue lately. But like he had some real players on those teams. Maybe they weren't playing their best basketball, but that's really something Luka's never had. Let's think who have Luka's best teammates ever been, and are they currently on this roster right now? Because I would think Jalen Brunson's probably the best teammate he's ever had, and he's in New York City. So Mark Cuban has to figure something out down there to draw free agent interest, which for some reason has been a huge problem for Dallas.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I've been to Dallas. Dallas is a nice city. It's in the state with no
No state income
tax.
tax. That's a huge
Like
thing. Absolutely.
I don't understand what the issue. Houston's 4 hours away, so if you want like that huge mega city appeal, it's a 4 hour trip. That's not bad. Maybe that's what a 30-minute flight. So for the NBA star, not a big issue. I don't understand why Dallas just can't draw free agent interest. They have a great owner that will
Yeah.
spend any money to win, that really cares about basketball,
The winning
and
pedigree. Yeah.
and they're playing with a guy that he could have top 10 all-time potential. Like I don't know why players wouldn't want to align themselves with that franchise like that, especially a franchise that has had somewhat recent success. I think
Mhm.
2011 is a lot closer than it probably is in
Yeah.
reality. But and
Yeah,
then
I'd say they're a winning franchise.
yeah,
They got
and
that
then
reputation.
yeah, and then the coaching staff, like Jason Kidd has proved to be a pretty
Yeah.
decent coach. I mean, he took out the team with the top record last year, and you can't just give that to Luka alone. Like
Mhm.
that was some great coaching by Jason Kidd, he's a player's player,
Yeah.
or he's a player's coach. I mean, I mean, I don't understand why Dallas just can't draw free agents, but they're gonna have to figure out what the issue is because otherwise they could lose the greatest player in the franchise history. And yes, I do think Luka will be a better player than Dirk when it's all said and done.
No, I don't think that's a hot take. And I agree with you 100%. I think the Mavs are heading down this road where it could become a real problem really fast. And I agree with you 100%. I literally wrote down everybody loves to compare the situation to the early LeBron Cavs. And that's exactly what it is, where you have this generational talent, this guy who is insanely talented. He's young, he's on a fairly cheap contract where he's not taking up all this money and away from everybody's cap space, and you can't build a team around him that can contend. And I mean, Luka's putting up 33, 8, and 8, which has come down because I think he started the season averaging like 38, 9, and 10 or something like that. Insane. He's shooting 50% on the season. I think different things can be true for different rosters. I think the Lakers should have focused more on building a roster with stronger role players, not as much as those kind of big name stars and shooters. Obviously, they should have focused on too. I think the Heat need a bucket getter, an assassin, and I think the Mavs need more than anything a second star. They need someone that they can rely on, that Luka doesn't have to play Superman every single night for them to get a victory. And that's really what it's been. Besides their last win, I think it was over the Denver Nuggets, where Luka, I mean, his numbers look good. It wasn't his best game of the season by any stretch of the imagination, and somehow they got out of there with the win. But they're treading the waters of seeing Luka really take a look around the league, getting frustrated with his lack of help, and try to force his way out one way or another. I know he's under contract till 2027 because of the extension he signed. I don't think we're there yet, but the early signs are starting to show up a little bit. I don't have the answer for the Mavs. Right now it appears there's no easy solution, but they tried to pair him with Porzingis. That failed miserably, and I blame that obviously more on Porzingis, which he's looked good this year, but he's not a second star in this league. And to be honest, it wouldn't happen, but the ideal player in this entire league for him that I see right now, defensive-minded big that doesn't need the ball a lot and can still put up large offensive numbers, he needs Anthony Davis. That's who he needs. That'd be a perfect fit for Luka, and obviously – some people out there were like, the Lakers might trade Anthony Davis. That's not going to happen. But Luka, he's still incredibly young. But Cuban, go back to those early Cavs situations with LeBron. Don't let history repeat itself, because you will regret it if for some reason or another Luka ends up walking out this door. You obviously want him to be a Maverick for life. He has set up. He signed the early extension that he didn't have to sign. He's gotten his money. Build a team around him. We do not want to see him just kind of wandering throughout the league. And as much as I don't blame LeBron for going to Miami, obviously there's so many people around this league that do. LeBron said, I need to build a team. Look, there's a team. I'm going to go build it, and I'm going to go show the league what I can do. I don't want to see Luka have to do that, but we might get to the situation. He's got no other choice. He wants to win in this league. Everybody knows that. So I think they're treading dangerous waters, and we're probably still a couple of years out from it, just because Luka's looking at, hey, I'm still so young, but things can happen quickly in this league. Young players can win championships in this league as the best player. And I don't know, man, it's could be a dangerous situation there for Dallas if they continue to kind of tread this mediocre.
Yeah. Now, for any Dallas fans listening, the one variable you do have, like I said earlier, that the Cavs didn't have is you have great ownership. And by the way, that Cavs player was Larry Hughes. I don't know why I didn't think of Larry Hughes. Wow, it's a rough day. It's a rough Friday.
Had to go back and look it up. I love it.
Yeah.
Sort of oh man.
Man, I play enough 2K to where that name should be ingrained in my head. Come on.
Oh man, sticking over in the West Coast, it's been an interesting season to say the least for the Los Angeles Lakers. And it's included Russ, putting his name in the 6th man of the year race all of a sudden out of nowhere. LeBron having the best year 20 that anybody's ever seen. Patrick Beverley doing what he does and shoving opponents in the back, and Anthony Davis MVP level play. I don't think a lot of us saw that coming, but Jared, where we stand right now and how miserable the Lakers started off this season. Obviously, they're still under 500. They're still technically out of the playoffs as it sits right now. But as of late, the last 6 or 7 games, they've had a couple big wins. They beat the Milwaukee Bucks and things like that. And how do you kind of picture the Lakers as we sit right now?
Well, they're definitely playing some of their best basketball we've seen since probably the 2021 season. Even though they did squeak into the playoffs as like an 8th seed, or no, I'm sorry, 7th seed.
Yeah.
This team, they're 6-4 through their last 10, which is a positive sign. Anthony Davis has been playing some of the best basketball in NBA history.
Yeah.
I believe it was over a 9-game stretch. He's the only player to average 35 points, 15 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks per game,
Insane.
which that's a crazy ESPN stat. But I mean, it still shows something that
Oh,
Anthony
yeah.
Davis is at like prime Anthony Davis levels right now. Now, the question is, will his health keep up? That's always going to be a concern. And with his co-star LeBron James, which we've already seen at stretches this season, LeBron has been in and out of the lineup. I mean, but what do you expect? The man's 37 years old and he's held up relatively well
Oh, yeah.
considering. I mean, he's still averaging 20 plus points per game when the rest of his draft class is, well, as Perk put
Retired.
it best, in their second careers.
They're all analysts at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although we'll see if Carmelo can make a comeback. I
He's
think
giving
there's a
you 26, 9, and 6 this year.
yeah,
LeBron.
that's some would say that's pretty good in any era.
I'd say so. Say
um,
so.
but like yeah, Bulls, Carmelo Anthony, we could use a shooter. Um,
The Lakers could use a shooter. Let's be
yeah,
honest.
well, the Lakers they have enough like over 35 geriatric NBA players
I
as
gotcha.
they've
They don't
learned.
need another.
And like going back to the roster, the thing that still concerns me about this team, their bench.
Yeah.
They have it's a G League bench. And even there's nothing you can really do to fix it because they don't really have assets. They have those 2
Mhm.
first round picks that,
God, we
and
hear
I'm gonna
about that more
save
than
it,
anything I've ever heard in my
which
life.
for whatever reason they think 2 picks that will net a team 2 kids that are in middle school right now
Yeah.
is gonna be attractive when packaged
Oh,
with
man.
Russell Westbrook to give up 2 all-star level players. Like, and I'm gonna dive into that later for a different segment. But there's not a lot the Lakers going to do because whatever, if they're going to make a trade with Westbrook and those picks, they want superstars in return or something close to that. And that's just not going to happen. The team's just not going to do that. And there's a lot of competition ahead of them. Let's run through the top 10 in the East or in the West right now that have essentially playoff and play in position if the league ended or the season ended right now. You got the Pelicans, Suns, Grizzlies, Nuggets, Kings, Jazz, Mavericks, Blazers, Clippers, and Warriors. Now, in 11th and 12th are the Timberwolves and the Thunder. What teams realistically are the Lakers better than that I just listed off?
The Kings.
Are they though? The Kings
Yeah.
are 13 and 10 in 5th place, and they've been going on a run. The Beam team's been playing well.
Yeah.
I don't think the Lakers are better than that team.
I think they are.
They're top heavy. The Lakers, their top players are better than the Kings' top players. But the Kings have a deeper bench, and I think they're more of a cohesive unit.
Yeah, but I get that. But there's a lot of teams there that are now falling down the standings that are coming back to the mean that started off so hot. Like the Jazz, who 2 weeks ago they were the number 1 seed. They're now 15 and 12. So
they're better than the Jazz. I will give them that.
The Jazz, and a lot of people might not like this either, but the Trailblazers, they started off really hot. And the Trailblazers, the question is always the health of Damian Lillard. So if all of a sudden Damian Lillard gets hurt again, it's kind of like Anthony Davis. If he gets hurt again, everything changes. But like the Trailblazers are 13 and 12. So the Trailblazers have, 3 more wins than the Lakers. So I wouldn't sit here and say that they are 100% better than them.
I'll take them with a healthy Lillard.
No, I will too, 100%. I would take them. They have a stronger team. But there's teams on there's no world beater in the Western Conference that I look at right now. Like, I don't see any of these teams as you cannot beat them. Like, like any of these teams, to be honest, what we talked about last year in the Eastern Conference with how even everything seemed to match up is how I look at the Western Conference this year. Like, I'm like, there's not a huge difference between 1 through, Lakers are sitting at 13 with 10 wins. You kind of drop out the Rockets and the Spurs off the bottom. So the Lakers obviously still right now at the bottom. And that's kind of just, they had an historically bad start. So they're still playing catch up when it comes to everything like that. But I'm looking at some of these teams. I'm like, Trailblazers are 3 and 7 in their last 10. Clippers are 4 and 6. There's Jazz are on their way down too. So it's just like there are some teams that are going to drop down where I feel if the Lakers can stay healthy, they'll start to climb up above them.
I feel like the Lakers are probably going to finish around 11th.
11th?
Yeah, at this point, because I'm thinking the Timberwolves, even though it's been a weird season for them, and Cat's going to be out a while, and Rudy Gobert hasn't really worked, and Anthony Edwards has been a little disappointing. I still think that's a better team. The Warriors, I believe they're going to rise. They were defending champions, and aside from Gary Payton Jr., or I'm sorry, Gary Payton the second, they're still the defending champions. Oh yeah, and Otto Porter and Bielitsa too. They're not there, but who cares? It's Otto Porter Jr. As Bulls fans know, he's not much to
Yeah.
miss. Um, I think the Clippers are going to right the ship. They just got to figure out Kawhi Leonard's health, and once he's back
Oh
consistently in the
God. Yeah.
lineup, I think they're going to be okay. I do think that will happen at some point.
Oh, I can't. I wish I could join you on that belief, but I just cannot, man. Oh man, I can't.
Like I said, they were my prediction for the tops.
That's
They're only 3.5 games out of first, and I did say at the start of the season they were my first seed.
they're just the Brooklyn Nets of the West, man. That's all they are at this
And
point.
and then, like I said, I don't think there's a conversation for the Lakers with teams like the Pelicans, Suns, Grizzlies, Nuggets. Um, I'll even throw the Mavericks, even though we
Mavericks.
just kind of like shit on their roster for like the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I will put the Mavericks in that category of like those 5 teams. I don't think the Lakers have a chance with. Well, 6 because Warriors.
Yeah.
7 because Clippers. Okay, I just listed 7 teams. I don't think the Lakers have an argument against. Um, I still think they could still make the playoffs or the play in, but it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet they finish 11th.
Yeah. Obviously, we know, for the Lakers, the keys is going to be Anthony Davis, and the
He
issue
has
for
to be the
Anthony
best player.
Davis, it's been that it seems his level of play always has an expiration date. It's always been about when he will get injured again and not if he'll get injured again. However, what we've seen these last 6 or 7 games from the Lakers are exactly the recipe that they've been hoping for. I think from a talent perspective, I think we're at the point where LeBron, I can say it, is no longer a top 5 player in this league. I don't think anyone would
It's
really argue
weird.
that. I think he's still probably top 15, maybe 12,
He's still top 10.
13. I don't know. He might be. He's around there.
Whoa, Jay's not saying
No,
LeBron's not top 10.
not right now. Not at year 20, and especially with the way that he's been banged
Whoa,
up a
I
little bit. He's
never
put
thought
up
I'd hear it.
no, he's put up good numbers. I'll just tell it like it is. I think he's probably top 15. I'd probably have him around my 11 or 12, somewhere
I'll make
around
a
there.
list for next week.
With how people
We
are
have to
playing.
get to the bottom of this.
No, that's all right.
I didn't think this would come up. I feel
no, that's fine.
prepared.
We could go through that. Hey, I'm all about honesty around here, man. Obviously LeBron's the GOAT, but at year 20, you'll dip. He's no longer.
I won't sign off on that.
Yeah, I know you won't. But with AD playing how he is, when he's at the peak of his power, like on any given night where he's doing what he's been doing the last couple of weeks, he's a top 5 player in this league. Now, is that sustainable over a season? We have not seen that. But that's the recipe for the Lakers. The Lakers want to be able to say, AD, this is your team. Bron will be the best number 2 in the league. He'll draw the attention of the defense. He can knock down shots when he's open. He's a streaky 3-point shooter. Obviously, started off this season terrible, and now all of a sudden he's shooting like 50% over the last 2 weeks. That's just what LeBron is. He averages out. He goes through stretches. But most of all, LeBron is going to feed you the ball nonstop, AD. Like, if that's what you want, if that's what you can handle, they will feed you down low because they've seen that you can just feast on the defense down there. And to be honest, he's the anchor of that defense. He's making an argument for defensive player of the year if he's out there and plays enough games, because when he's out there, it changes the entire game, not on the just on the offensive end, but the defensive end too for AD. If he can stay on the court, if he can keep that intensity level, the Lakers could absolutely find their way into the playoffs and maybe even be a tough out. And once you get to those playoffs, depending on the health, depending on the rest that you're able to get to, I don't think anybody's going to be sitting there in a first round matchup against Anthony Davis playing at the peak of his power and LeBron James, who, he's still LeBron James, and thinking, hey, we just got an easy first round like series. Like, you never know what could happen when you get to the playoffs. So I think they've taken the season that was an absolute lost cause, and now at least it looks like they have a path forward. And I think that's a huge step up for the Lakers as they're trying to just kind of look at what they're going to do to get through this season. But man, you talked a little bit about it, and I want to talk about it too. The defending champion Warriors, they currently hold the 10 seed. They're an even 13-13 record on the season. Are you worried about the Warriors? I know you said already that you see them climbing. How do you see them climbing out of this?
The championship pedigree, the coaching, and Steph Curry. See,
Okay.
Steph Curry's playing some of the best basketball he's ever played in his career. Even though it kind of goes against everything I believe and hold true in an MVP discussion, whereas the Warriors are sitting in 10th at 500, Curry's up in that conversation, and it's kind of hard to dispute that. He's what's keeping them afloat right now. Steve Kerr is still one of the best coaches in the NBA, and even though there's that terrible example of late game management, where they blew like a 4-point lead in the matter of seconds to lose a game by like a point a couple nights ago, we're gonna look past that. But at the end of the day, they still have Steph Curry. That's still, for the most part, the same team that won the championship last season. And I think they have some assets to where if they want to extend the life of this run and of this core that we've seen since about 2013, they have assets that they can move. They have some young players that maybe they could package together to bring in a really nice role player, or maybe a fourth or fifth star, if you want to call it that. If you think Clay and Draymond and Jordan Poole fall into the star category or close. Um, and I think we've seen nights where Klay Thompson, who has struggled at points this season, he's put together some nice games recently to where I'm kind of hoping we see that a little more consistently. I hope we see Klay's shot from outside falling a little more. And in that case, since it's still so close in the West right now, I don't see why the Warriors couldn't bloom. I mean, they're the Warriors, they're the defending champions.
Yeah, I got you, but I do think it's time to start worrying a little bit about the Warriors because they are a team in such a unique position where they wanted to effectively have two starting rotations. Like they kind of want to just have the young guys coming in off the bench, but we foresee them as pretty much starters moving forward, where you kind of just have the younger version almost of their starters coming in off the bench with the talented vets, the young guns. That has not worked out this season. It seems like those young guys are getting less and less minutes. We saw James Wiseman get sent to the G League. I think he recently just got called right back up, though. But just those guys, they're losing minutes because they're not effective minutes. And many times this season, they've looked lost on defense when in the past, that's always been the consistent with their team. Jordan Poole, after he got his money, he's looking worse. He's not looking better. Curry's been fantastic, but without the onslaught of those other shooters, Klay Thompson always being a threat. He's still occasionally a threat from deep, but without him always being that threat, that lockdown defense, teams can kind of deal with Curry, lighten it up, and still get a win. And I'm looking at the product that they're putting out on the court this season. I don't see a championship caliber team. You know, the bright spot for them is that they have time to figure it out. That was interesting. I didn't think about them because they've talked about openly how high they were on their young players. I didn't think about them collecting those and putting together a package to try to trade for someone. So that's interesting. That might change my opinion on them a little bit, but I just think there's there's nothing they've done so far this season that would make me think that they have something to hang their hat on to get there, besides obviously their championship pedigree. And I know about all that. And I go back to, Draymond punching Jordan Poole in the face before the season even started, where it just seems like Draymond was the vocal leader on defense. I don't think anybody really would argue that he is the anchor to that defense. And I almost just wonder if with some of those guys on the team, he lost a little bit of that respect, a little bit of that, I'm going to follow this guy into battle because of the actions he did before the season. So I don't know about the Warriors, man. It's when you said package some of those guys, I was going to bring this up for the Lakers too, to someone that to try to trade for, but someone who's playing really well on a bad basketball team that's trying to find their way to a good basketball team. Bojan Bogdanovic, dude, he's been insane for the Detroit Pistons. He's like dropping 35 points a night, which obviously I know Cade Cunningham's been hurt and obviously they're not a good basketball team, but one of those guys, maybe you can go out and maybe trade, I know they're high on Kuminga. See, it seems like with the Lakers, or not the Lakers, with the Warriors, they don't want to trade any of those guys. It seems like they love Jonathan Kuminga. They love Moses Moody. It seems like the one they don't love is James Wiseman. So maybe they go and say, hey, take James Wiseman and give us Bogdanovic, and he slides in there in that starting rotation, and he's just a scorer. So we'll see how that all turns out. But I'm a little worried about the Warriors.
Bogdanovic would be the perfect Warriors player. Perfect trade asset for that team.
Yeah, it seems like what they do.
Yeah, he's kind of destined because he could be in a lineup. You could play him at the 4, make Draymond the 5. There's your small ball rotation right there.
Yeah, and that's because right now they got, obviously Kevon Looney. Then Kevon Looney becomes one of those guys off the bench. Then you don't have to play James Wiseman. You don't.
Well,
You
they
kind of have
haven't
your.
been playing James
Yeah,
Wiseman.
exactly. But then you don't have to have the kind of backup centers because you don't really need one because your backup center then becomes Kevon Looney. So I don't know, man. There's a lot of questions with the Warriors that I see right now, and I just what they've put on the court this season. I don't like even last year where that they started off good and then they took off, but even in the beginning of the season, when they were kind of meddling a little bit, that defense was there. Like we could see that defense was back. You could not score on the Warriors. It took a little bit for Curry to kind of hit his stride and Klay Thompson obviously to get back into the rotation and get things going. Jordan Poole like to become Jordan Poole, who we know now, but I don't see that thing so far this season that they can hang their hat on. So I am a little bit worried about the Warriors.
Oh, that's fair.
So moving right along now, sticking in the Western Conference, it's going pretty much exactly how we all expected, and that's the Pelicans being at first place in the Western Conference. I mean, we all had that at this point, right? I mean, that was obvious. So Jared, what do you make, of this now a quarter of the way into the season for the Pelicans?
Well, hey, I said in fairness to us,
You did. Yep.
we did say that the Pelicans were probably our top team where like if they're gonna boom, they're gonna boom.
Yep.
Um, maybe not to the first seed this early, but I mean we did leave that door open. We weren't closed off to
That's
the
true.
idea like
That's
I
true.
probably was
we
about the
didn't
Celtics
we
being
didn't
like
say it
the
with
Greek
our
Monster.
chests. We didn't say it like, hey, the Pelicans, they're going to be the team to look out for, but you're right. We did kind of leave that door open for
Yeah,
the back
so
end.
we got to give us a little credit. um,
Oh man.
But I mean, this is great for this franchise. The team's playing really well together. It's great seeing Zion on the floor and being
Yeah.
part of the reason why this team is playing so well. I mean, we saw flashes of it last season where they went on a big run and got into the playoffs and gave the Suns a little bit of trouble in the first round. So this proves this team could be a real player when things come down to it. Once we have the final seeding for the playoffs, they're not going to be an easy out and maybe they'll have home court advantage. We don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
we're only 20-ish, 25 games in. I'm really excited to see where this team goes. It's finally great to see him healthy. I love as CJ McCollum's one of my favorite players. I love seeing him on a team that is doing well always. And I'm kind of excited to see Zion's story as a developing NBA All-Star in this league.
Yeah, I'm with you. Whenever he's been on the court since he's been in the NBA, he's been not just fantastic, he's been historic. Like the numbers he's been putting up at the efficiency that he's been able to do it. We
Mm-hmm.
forget about that, obviously, because of his injuries and things off the court, which off the court, people just kind of comment on his weight or how he looked or things like that. And it's like when this man's on the court, he is a historic player for the age that he's at right now. I've been impressed with the Pelicans early on this season, and so far everything's just gone according to plan. Like you said, Zion, he's been fantastic. It seems like his minutes are continuing to increase game after game. He's giving you
Mm-hmm.
24, 7, and 4. Ingram, number 2 option, has been great, 25 and 4. And then, as you mentioned, CJ McCollum, he's been fantastic. As the number 3 option, giving you 17, 5, and 6. You'll take that from your number 3 option. You'll take
Decent
that on
number
a
three
consistent
option.
basis. And obviously, he's a leader. He's a veteran in that locker room. He knows what's going on. He's a leader out there on the court, off the court. He's a great guy to have in your locker room. And then those role players, they're gaining confidence. They're really playing well together. We saw some flashes last season with Jose Alvarado. We talk about a lot of these guys where it seems like those guys coming off the bench, they are ready to play. A lot of them probably think that they could be starters in this league, and they're going out there every night looking to prove it, whether you don't see that drop off from when the starters are out there to when the bench players comes in. And that's when you have a really good team, is when you don't see that inconsistent level of play where it's like, we'll go on a run, the other team will go on a run. You're just seeing solid basketball, solid 60 minutes of basketball out there every night. And they're playing fantastic throughout. And I love to see it. And I don't think the Pelicans will end the season as the 1 seed. I still think they'll come back down a little bit more, barring injury, especially to Zion. They've shown that they're going to be the mix at the top of this conference. And I don't think it's been a fluke. They've taken advantage of slow starts to some of the contenders. And really, it's been a more well-balanced Western Conference than what we're used to seeing. They're a fun watch, man. And they're only getting better at this point. So I will say I'm impressed with the Pelicans so far to start this season, because I didn't see this coming to this extent. but it's been great to watch. I know that.
You know what else is a fun watch? Any of Zion Williamson's press conferences. I gotta say, great time.
Oh man.
Did you see the ones around Thanksgiving when
Yeah, they're like,
hey
oh,
Zion, what's your favorite food?
you're trying to get me to walk into that. I'm not gonna walk into that. Oh man.
Oh, they're great. I love Zion. He's such a great personality to have around the
He
league.
really is. And just
On
with
and off the court.
the hype that's been surrounding him too, it's so easy for those guys to become like kind of cold and standoffish just because I mean, what he's dealt with in the media, you could say is unfair. Like some of those things that a lot of these other players don't have to deal with, and he's taken it all in stride. He's dealt with his injuries, and at every turn, he's talked about, I want to be back on the court. Like they're talking about, well, you know, he got paid and he's only played this much. At every turn, he's like, I want to play. He's trying to force his way into playing. And the Pelicans like, hey, we need to look out for you. But I love Zion, man. He's such a likable guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's out there. He's trying to play basketball. He's trying to just win for the Pelicans, and everybody's like, oh, he's just going to force his way out of the Pelicans. We don't know that. Like let him go out there and let him have a normal NBA career like everybody else is awarded.
Yeah, he's not going to force himself out if they continue to play like this.
Exactly. Brandon Ingram's found a home there. He's looking great as that number 2 option. You go and you make that move for CJ when Zion's not playing. That shows, hey, we're invested in these guys that we have. We're bringing more guys in. We're not sending guys out. I think that's a huge message to send to your locker room to show, hey, we're ready to go. We're ready to contend, and maybe this is the year that they get into that second round, and then they're looking around. Heck, maybe they get to a conference finals. So you're starting to look around like, we're going to try to make that last move to push us completely over the edge. Let's win a championship. Like that's what they're going to be looking to do. And I love the message that they're sending there in New Orleans. So that moves us on here to our favorite segment on the Tee 'em Up podcast. That is, of course, Tee 'em Up. So we've had a little bit building up here, Jared. I'm sure you have a pretty good one. We'll see where you go with this one. I'm just going to leave it open-ended there.
No, maybe this would have been more relevant last week.
Okay.
But I don't care. We didn't pod last week.
Nope.
So I'm just going to vent right now. I already wrote a column about it for fansports.com. So if you want to check that out, there you go. But we got to talk. We got to slow the roll with this whole break up the Bulls. And if we're going to break up the Bulls, we're not sending DeMar DeRozan and Nikola Vucevic, of all players, to the Lakers for 2 middle schoolers and Russell Westbrook. That's not going to happen. I'm sorry, Mr. Bill Simmons.
What about Kendrick Nunn and Pat Bev?
Stop.
You don't want them?
No. No, keep them away. I mean, I'll take Pat Bev if my team's contending.
You'll take Pat. Okay.
Dude, I want a guy that's going to be emotional. I miss Joakim Noah. I will take Pat Bev as a discount version of just an attitude.
Well, I'll have a surprise for you, so keep going.
So yeah, I'm teeing up Bill Simmons. I really didn't. I'm teeing up everyone that's suggesting the Bulls and the Lakers do business, because that's not going to happen. Bill Simmons said this is one of the 3 trades, which the other 2 were also awful, I might add. But this is one of the 3 trades that's going to save the Chicago Bulls. The Lakers 2027th unprotected. The Lakers 2029th with a top 5. Wait, we're giving up a second team All-NBA player, and Nikola Vucevic to help the Lakers contend. 2 really good players. Yes, I still think Vuce is a really good player. It's just he's struggling in his role and he's not at the top of his game. Regardless, we're going to give those 2 up for a protected first in 2029, when who knows, maybe the Lakers will still be good. And the Bulls don't even have their pick for this year. So we can't really tank for Wembanyama because we don't have his pick. We do have the Portland's pick, but they might make the playoffs, and that pick's lottery protected anyway. So, I mean, that doesn't do us much good in the tank for Wembanyama standings, which Portland, with what the fantastic work they're doing in San Antonio and Houston to not be good at basketball.
Doing a really good job. Yeah, they really are.
Portland could lose their 5 best players and still be a better team than those really 2 squads. Though that trade's not going to save the Bulls. That'd ruin the Bulls. We'd get no value back that would even make sense. And that's a bad look for a team, which the sole goal for this new regime in Chicago is to reestablish the Bulls' winning pedigree, to be an attractive destination for free agents, because it is not the 3rd biggest sports market in the country for nothing. Yet free agents have not looked at Chicago in the past for a reason. Our last big free agent signing was Dwayne Wade.
Yeah.
We amnestied after 1 year. Pau Gasol before him, which Pau Gasol was great. 2 all-star appearances, although he wasn't an all-star at the top of his game. Dwayne Wade clearly wasn't at the top of his game, although I would like to contend he was still a lot better than what others will tell you.
Yeah.
But when was the last time the Bulls have attracted a free agent in his prime? Maybe Carlos Boozer, but when Carlos came to Chicago, he wasn't the best Carlos Boozer we've seen. So I'm not counting that one. Chicago hasn't been a free agent destination for a long time, and this trade is certainly not going to be attractive to other free agents because they're like, oh, so they move off guys that come here after 1 year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, teeing up Bill Simmons, who I agree with. Teeing up Bill Simmons and anyone else that has a dumbass reason to say, hey, Bulls should do that trade. So that's out to you, Laker fans, and some of you in Chicago Bulls Nation. Don't talk to me. Stay on my Twitter DMs. I'm teaming up all you.
I got you. So my technical foul this week is going to someone who made an interesting cameo there in your discussion, your technical foul. And I'm teeing up Patrick Beverley, just Patrick Beverley, just him as a player. I don't think it's been unfair to say he's been probably the worst player in the NBA this season for the Lakers. He's putting up 4, 4, and 2. And I'm actually moving those averages up. It's more like, 3.8. I'm helping him a little bit with the 4, 4, and 2. He's shooting a terrible 27% from the field.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that bad.
27% from the field.
Never mind, I don't want him.
22% from 3-point. Yet when you watch him play, he continues to jack up all the threes in the world. This whole Russell Westbrook, who all of a sudden has become a decent shooter off the bench, don't know what happened there. Literally some like Magic Mike stuff just started to happen where he's knocking down
Carmelo
threes.
effect.
It's weird, but we'll take it. But then Patrick Beverley is out there jacking up threes like he's JJ Redick. It makes no sense. He's out there just with all the confidence in the world in these long balls. On top of that, his defense has not been any better. He's been out there shoving dudes in the back just like he always has from DeAndre Ayton, getting suspended, showing no leadership for this team, talking about how, but even before the season, he's like, oh, did LeBron go to the playoffs last year? Oh, because I did. So, he's my team. They're going to have to adjust. Are you kidding me, Patrick Beverley? Like, I'm so sick of this. I've never been a Patrick Beverley fan of his. I'm amazed.
Couldn't tell.
I'm amazed he's getting 26 minutes a game. This man's playing 26 minutes a game for the Lakers. I don't care who. Just walk down the bench and just pick one and give him 26 minutes a game. I don't even know who is on the rest of that roster. They'd be better off giving those minutes to anybody. They'd be Matt Ryan. They already cut him, the sharpshooter who made that game winner. I don't care. Thomas Bryant, he's playing all right in the backup center role. I don't even know who the backup guards are. Heck, give 26 more minutes to Kendrick Nunn. At least he's got a higher upside, even though he's trash and has been trash for a while now. But anybody would be better off getting those minutes. He's playing himself out of this league. Well, Dennis Schroeder's the starter. Dennis Schroeder's the starting point guard. Patrick Beverley's your starting 2 guard. He's been the starter on this team. He's been terrible. He's playing himself out of this league. Every time he is on the court, I cringe because it is terrible to see he's out there just jacking up shots. How do you shoot 27% from the field? Like he's not taking anything but threes, and he's missing them all.
Those are Basketball Association of America numbers.
Man. Technical foul to Patrick Beverley. He's about to be playing over in China and probably going to be getting a nice little bag. But over there in China, it's all about respect and respect for your other players. He starts shoving people over in China. He's not going to be able to play over there anyway. So I don't know, man.
Speaking of China, if they want a shooter at the guard spot that has a ton of energy from China, we both know a certain player that's sitting over there right now that's kind of cooking in the CBA. Maybe a little Eugene German action.
Eugene German? No, he has been really good. 100%.
By the way, for those that
NIU Husky, 100%.
He was a top 5 scorer in the nation in 2020.
Yeah.
Probably would have led the Huskies to an NCAA NCAA tournament appearance for the first time since 1996.
COVID ruined that, man.
College basketball history for you.
the COVID year, man. They were rolling that year. Eugene German playing
I was
fantastic
there.
out of his mind.
I was in Cleveland to cover it,
Yeah.
and they shut it down, and I was
Shut it
stranded.
down. Oh man. That was
Man, I got
rough.
to get that whole story in a podcast or a book someday.
100%, man. I might just send some DMs out there and just say, "Hey, take a look at Eugene," because I 26 minutes. Give him 26 minutes, and we'll see what happens.
In my experience as a GM in NBA 2K, I would have to say I could probably manage Lakers player personnel better.
Well, see, I can only give out so many technical fouls to Rob Pelinka. I've given out a lot of those.
You have. I
and
probably
yet,
have too.
And yet he continues to get like contract extensions. It makes no sense. Just because he was Kobe's agent, Lakers are all about family. Like they're not a serious front office. They run themselves like the family diner at the end of the street. Like they're not a legitimate organization. And the only reason we talk about them again is because LeBron chose them. If LeBron never chooses the Lakers, if he goes anywhere else when he's making his decision to leave Cleveland again, we don't talk about the Lakers. And everybody wants to go, oh, LeBron ruined the Lakers. Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss ruined the Lakers. Like, let's be honest with what it is. I can't give out any more technical fouls to Rob Pelinka, so I'll just give out a technical foul to his most recent trade, and that's bringing in Patrick Beverley. So technical foul to Patrick Beverley. Good luck wherever you're going to be playing, because you're going to be seeing it here pretty quick. He's about to be waived. Like, it's got to be coming. It's insane.
I'm convinced John C. Reilly pretending to be Jerry or acting as Jerry Buss might be a better head of management.
It's so bad. It's so bad, man. Oh, I could talk about this for hours, but that's all we have this week on the TMO podcast. I want to thank you guys all for joining us here. Thank you all for listening, for following along, for dealing with what the Lakers are. If you're a Lakers fan, I feel really sorry for you. I'm not a Lakers fan. I'm a LeBron fan, so I know it's rough out there for you guys for hanging in there with the team. Thank you guys all for following along on all of our social media platforms for fun NBA content throughout the week. It's been fantastic on TikTok. We're up there, I think, around 14,000.
Shout out TikTok fam.
Been
and
fantastic.
We're over 1,000. Yeah, I think 1,300 on Instagram.
On Instagram 14. Too. It's been you guys have been great, and the support that we've been seeing, it's been awesome to see. So we want to keep that going for you guys, and obviously continue to pump out content on this podcast as well. So thank you guys all for joining us, and we'll be sure to catch you guys next time.
And remember, Laker fans, the Bulls damn sure ain't trading with you.